This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. We can't measure in meters how far Rudy Giuliani has fallen from grace. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a long way down from being America's mayor to being whatever the shell of himself he's currently occupying. I've never seen, to be frank, I've never seen a public display this of a fall into the last ring of hell like of his own making, like Rudy Giuliani. And we break down the latest bombshell against Rudy Giuliani in a new book, new memoir coming out by Cassidy Hutchinson calling Enough. You know, it's not enough. Ben Meiselas and me giving the analysis of all the troubles of Rudy Giuliani and the summer horribles that of his own creation in civil and criminal cases. 13 times indicted in Georgia, unindicted but soon to be indicted co-conspirator in Jack Smith's cases, sued by his own lawyer for unpaid fees, sued in a $10 million case from one of his assistants for sexual harassment, and now this. Let's go to Ben and me breaking it all down on Legal AF. Speaking of somebody that shouldn't be on the air ever again, is Rudy Giuliani. What a fall from grace from whatever perch he was on when he was America's mayor and the Wolf of Wall Street, the Sheriff of Wall Street. It's so long ago, and he's done so many terrible, terrible criminal things since then. It's hard to believe we talk about the same. We're talking about the same person. I know people. I'm 1 degree of separation from people that worked with Rudy in the U.S. Attorney's Office. One of my mentors when I started my law career was Rudy Giuliani's right hand, not with Bob Costello. We'll talk about him in a minute, but they were in that same group. He was either the first deputy or the second deputy. And when I asked that person, and I won't out them here, when I asked that person about what happened to Rudy Giuliani, all they do, and I've been with several people that have worked with him, they just look down at their shoes. They're just like, we don't know who this person is. It's not the person that we worked for. It's not the person that we looked up to. Something terrible has happened. You know what something terrible has happened to Cassidy Hutchinson? I mean, this is a summer where not one, but 2 women have come out and said that they've been sexually assaulted and abused and harassed by Rudy Giuliani. People might have thought I was about to say Donald Trump. They're basically interchangeable. And now talk about life imitating art or vice versa. I mean, we thought it was sort of funny in the Borat movie when he went into a bedroom with a hidden camera, thinking he was going to make it with the reporter who was Borat's fake daughter in the movie, and put his hand down his pants to get ready on the bed. But now it is completely par for the course. It's what this man does as part of the misogyny of the Republican or MAGA party, Ben, that you mentioned earlier. And so you've got, so just this summer, it's not even, since you and I went on the air in May till now, summer's not even over yet. This is what's happened to Rudy Giuliani. I'll just do the rundown, then I'll turn it over to you. He's been indicted 13 times in Georgia for his role in the criminal conspiracy. So he's in that case we've talked about today. He is not named, but he's obviously a unindicted co-conspirator in the indictment in the DC election interference case brought by Jack Smith in front of Judge Chutkan. And based on the track record of Jack Smith, who likes to do amended or superseding indictments, we could see Rudy Giuliani, who is obviously is not cooperating with the government, in that indictment as well. Then because he screwed around and violated all good faith obligations in federal court in a civil case in which daughter and mother Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who were Fulton County election workers, it's all they were, just doing their civic duty, mercilessly doxxed and attacked by Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and others hundreds and hundreds of times, including like recently, about the fact that they claim that they were shoving fake ballots for Joe Biden, into the voting machine, a lie, that they were using a thumb drive with data and sticking it in order to turn the election against Donald Trump and for Joe Biden, a lie, all a lie, using doctored video clips run backwards, showing the opposite, that they were all they were doing is taking discarded votes that they were counting and putting them in a locked box underneath. If you run the video in the other direction, it looks like you're taking the ballots out of the box and putting them into the machine. I mean, and that was easily caught by everybody, including the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the investigators for the Secretary of State for Georgia. So we've got that case. He's already lost that case because the judge has said, because you screwed around and didn't produce all your documents and foot dragged for so long and put them at a disadvantage, I'm going to find that you don't have any defenses to the liability case at all. You've lost. Now we're just going to go to a jury on how big an amount of damages they're going to force you to pay. So it's just a case on damages. Then you've got the new case brought by one of his former colleagues who says that she was in a perverse sexual relationship with him, that he forced her into, and sexual harassment and sexual attacks. And she's suing for $10 million, Noelle Dunphy. And we thought, God, could it get any worse for this guy? He gets sued by his, I almost said by his Labrador retriever. I mean, he's got everything but his best friend, the dog, leaving him. Bob Costello, who he worked for and with in the U.S. Attorney's Office for New York back in the day, who represented everybody. Like, he represented Michael Cohen at one point. He went into the grand jury in the Stormy Daniels case against Michael Cohen. This guy's everywhere. He's also at a law firm that I know well in town because I've been against them. And apparently, among the many lawyers that Rudy Giuliani hasn't paid is one of his buddies, Bob Costello. So Bob Costello's firm filed a $1.3 million case because he claims that he hasn't been paid for attorney's fees. And to which Giuliani fights back, oh, I'm really disappointed that my buddy Bob Costello would sue me, but he overbilled me. He overcharged me. Okay, great. I thought that was it for the week. I was going to draw a line under the Rudy Giuliani stories. And then the memoir gets revealed in The Guardian with an early copy by Cassidy Hutchinson. It's called Enough. And in it, speaking of enough, is that she was sexually attacked by Rudy Giuliani while John Eastman watched on Jan 6th before the ellipse speech. Okay, Ben, I just can't. That's the list. Which one of those would you like to talk about?
I think overwhelmingly the legal AFers get the point on Rudy Giuliani. I'll make the broader generalization, though, about Rudy Giuliani, and it's the same with Donald Trump. And as you discussed before, they could be used essentially, interchangeably, which is they don't follow rules and evidence and decorum and all of the things in a courtroom. And of course, the conduct by Giuliani outside of the court is heinous, despicable, unlawful. But if you want to prove or disprove facts, we have a system for it. We have our judicial system, and it relies on evidence and admissible evidence. So when we spoke earlier in this episode about Jeff Clark's lawyer not showing up with witnesses, I go back and say this over and over again here on the MeidasTouch network, which is witnesses, evidence, admissibility, facts, that shouldn't be unique to one political party. Unfortunately, that's what it is. You have Democrats in this pro-democracy coalition tending to be more focused on, let's deal with the evidence. Here are the facts. Here's what it says. And then MAGA Republicans focused on hearsay on top of hearsay and just impugning people's reputations and just making these slanderous statements outside of court. And then they whine about it when they step into a court of law and they are laughed out or sanctioned or lose or default. And then they go, oh, the judge is picking on me. Judge Beryl Howells, it's a default. This is the deep state. It's just show your evidence. And I go back to an order from over close to a year ago at this point from Judge Arthur Engoron on the Trump civil fraud valuation case when New York Attorney General Letitia James was seeking a preliminary injunction. And Judge Engoron said, Donald Trump hasn't put forward a scintilla of evidence to rebut the hundreds of pages and affidavits and evidence that was put forward. Same thing here with Giuliani, same thing with Jeff Clark. And as we talk about more and more of these cases, put forward your evidence so that I can, and if you put forward compelling evidence on Legal AF, Popok and I will say, the same way we said about Jeff Clark, hey, here's the 11th Circuit precedent. It could have proved to be a bit of a tricky one for the federal judge to decide. And then Clark put forward no evidence. If you put forward evidence, then I'll say, here's the evidence on one side, here's the evidence on the other side. That's just simply not what we see, Michael Popok. And we see time and time again, not paying bills, not bringing evidence into court, missing every deadline, not showing up, defaulting, and then whining and saying it's a massive conspiracy against them. Those are the hallmarks of MAGA litigation. Back to you, Popok.
Well, we're doing much better at the MeidasTouch Network than Rudy Giuliani ever will. We encourage you, if that whet your appetite, come back to Legal AF. It's on Wednesdays. It's on Saturdays. One place, exclusively on the MeidasTouch Network. Go to their YouTube channel. Free subscribe. Yes, I said free. Free subscribe. Help them get to 2 million. The bigger they get, the more your voice is heard. Only in one place, the MeidasTouch Network. If you like what I'm doing, Michael Popok, give me a thumbs up on this particular hot take related to Legal AF. And until the next episode of Legal AF, until my next hot take, this is Michael Popok.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.